Hello, everybody. How are we doing today? Day 2 of the conference. My name is Barrow Hamilton. I'm the VP of Product at AGDATA. I want to talk to you guys today, obviously, about data, but more specifically about how you turn data into intelligence. There's been a lot of conversations here. A lot of the sessions I've been to have been on this topic as well. I'll give you some of my perspective on it, and in particular, obviously want to speak about some of the ways that AGDATA does this for our customers. As I get started, I'd love just show of hands about who am I speaking with? Like people sitting here, people that are watching. So show of farmers, retailers, tech companies like mine, potential partners. Yeah, right there. All right. All right, great. Well, we're going to talk about this across the ecosystem. And what AGDATA does, and like I said, turning data into intelligence. So I'm going to start with a couple of pieces of probably fairly obvious context, and then move as quickly as I can into some of the things that we do. And depending on where you are in this entire supply chain ecosystem, the things relative to what you want to do with data are going to be a bit different in terms of turning them into intelligence. I was in a presentation yesterday, and one of the panel participants made an observation that people say that data is gold. And he made a comment about how he's not sure that's really true. There's not really a price on data. I thought more about that later because I've always thought about that as well. And it occurred to me, yeah, you're right. It's the data that's gold. It's the intelligence you can get out of the data that really becomes the gold. So how do you get from there, from data to intelligence? So I'm going to speak to you about the ways that AGDATA does that and our specific part of the market as well. As part of what we're solving for. But first, to start off, what exactly are we solving for? So, like I said earlier, some obvious probably context, but this is the reason AGDATA exists, and this is the kind of stuff we help with, right? We all know that this industry is challenging. This year is just as challenging as other years, right? There's lots of uncertainty around lots of things, and it's all around maximizing your market opportunity depending on where you are. If you're one of the retailers who's sitting here, you obviously live this every day. If you're one of the tech companies that's sitting here, you're working in this ecosystem to help everybody be successful. So we all know that this is the case. And then we also know that in this industry, like many industries, but in this industry, profit margin pressures are always there, and they require optimization of revenues and costs. Like I said, fairly obvious stuff. But this is still being talked about pretty broadly, especially this year. This is a quote from an article that I was reading recently. You can see it's from June. But the whole concept here that's being communicated is it's not just about data to achieve actions, but actually data to pull intelligence out of that so you can do what I was talking about earlier in terms of optimizing revenue and efficiencies for costs. So all that kind of stuff that you would expect. And the best companies in the ag space and really in this industry are not just using data, they're using it to drive alignment, action, and growth. And that's what AGDATA does. That's what we partner with companies to do. That's what we partner with others in the ecosystem to do as well. So let me talk more specifically about what that means from our perspective and how we think about it. And I'm going to spend most of my time on this particular slide and refer to some different pieces of it. So the first part of what we do, and the thing that is really critical for turning data into intelligence, it's just getting your arms around the data and getting it all managed and continuing to manage it. So that's in the very center of the slide that you can see here, AGDATA and data management. So what does that mean? So depending on, once again, where you are in the ecosystem, you may have different challenges around collecting that data. We work quite a bit, for example, one of our primary value delivery mechanisms is aggregating data for manufacturers and the facilitation of market rebate payment programs. So that's a lot of data collection, right, to aggregate together. What you tend to find with data is that data gets aggregated and it's not all clean. It's not all matched. There's pieces missing. There's things you're not sure if this goes with this, particularly if you're in a more complex retail environment and maybe you have different hierarchies of associations that need to be put together. All that stuff has to be cleansed and matched, and then you want to master all that data so that you feel certain about the data set that you're working with. So that's the very first key. To get any intelligence out of data, you got to feel good about the data, and that usually requires a process because you usually have data coming out of multiple systems, multiple places, sometimes in manual places, and you want to make sure that you trust the data. That's the base layer. You also typically want to integrate that data with something else to get that intelligence out of it. Now, sometimes a lot of people will take a lot of data, put it in a spreadsheet, you can get intelligence out of it that way. There's also a lot of great tools on the market as well that you can feed that data into to help you get intelligence out of it. Now, what else can you do with that data to turn intelligence? Well, once again, there's all kinds of data to be collected here. I thought it was interesting, I don't know if John's still here, but was speaking earlier about listening to the soil and turning that into actionable data, information, intelligence about what to do with the plant aerification, right? That's one purpose of, or it's one way example of turning data into intelligence. One of the things specific to AGDATA that we do that's relevant to some of you, particularly if you're in the retail space, is in this upper left column. As I said earlier, we manage a lot of the data that feeds through the entire supply chain for the verification, calculation, and eventually the fulfillment of payments for rebate programs. So that's one of our primary reasons for existence, and that's more of an operational use of what we do. However, within all that data, one of the things that we can supply is more intelligence around the things that are happening within that ecosystem, like inventory and material balances, performance of programs, forecasting of revenues, forecasting of rebate payments, bringing more real-time visibility to anyone who depends on those payments. When are they coming? What are they looking to be? And then verification of, do I agree that this is what I should be paid based on my activities? So solidifying that entire process is a big part of what AGDATA does. However, within that data, we also then have a series of applications that our customers can use to get additional intelligence from that information. So working our way around to the right of this wheel, doing things like grower activation, retailer activation, sales and marketing activation. So taking the data that's resident in our product, and as you're working with whoever's relevant to you in the ecosystem, not just speaking to them about what's happening, but being able to show them that information and have an intelligent conversation around that information. We are also working to bring more and more intelligence to what's happening across the entire market. Once again, for our piece of the market, right, which is around products and what's happening between manufacturer, distributor, retailer, down to the individual producers. And then bringing that down to individuals, customer levels in the market as well, which facilitates better planning, better sales, better revenue optimization, better assignment of resources for that cost optimization that I was talking about earlier. But all that stuff all feeds from, first, what I talked about earlier, the management of the data, the cleansing, the mastering, et cetera, to get it to that point. So this is relevant very much so to AGDATA, and if you're interested in kind of these sort of services that would help you, I'd love to talk to you about them. But I want to reiterate that there's lots of uses for turning data into intelligence that are different than this, but I would argue they all start with that central part of making sure you've got clarity on the data that's cleansed, that's matched correctly, et cetera. And that's really core to our expertise. The other thing then you can also do with data, which is that final piece, is enrich the data. And so that's usually when we're taking data from additional data sources, adding things to it, adding weather predictive data, things of that nature, things that are outside of maybe your normal operations or normal way of obtaining data. We can do that as well. But that's a third way of adding intelligence to your data is what data do I have? I feel good about this. What do I want to know? What other data sets are out there that I can go access and enrich my data with that gives me even further intelligence from the data I'm working with? So one final piece on AGDATA. We've been doing this for a long time. We're celebrating our 40th anniversary this year. So really proud to be part of all of that. We've been doing this at a very large scale for a long time. You can see some statistics there. I mentioned earlier, one of our primary things is the facilitation of these marketing programs. So we manage about $7 billion of those annually. We collect data from 8,000 distributors. I mentioned earlier about the collection and the mastering and the complexity of all that. That's the volume of data we're working with. 56 million transactions. And we also have a database and a tool called Accelerate that you may have heard of that manages over 450,000 grower seed trait licenses. So hopefully that was helpful in terms of some thinking about turning data into intelligence. You can see the specifics about what we do specifically. This is a quote from one of our customers, so it's not just me saying. Our customers are telling us we're helping them turn data into intelligence as well. And if you'd like to hear any more, have any questions for me, want to talk further, feel free to scan this QR code or come grab me. I'll still be here. And I thank you very much for your time and hope you have a great rest of your conference. Thanks.